Hey there YouTubers, it's Silver TARDIS here again with another Doctor Who review. This time I'm going to be looking at the second episode of Series 7 Part 2, The Rings of Akhaten. Now, this episode has split the fanbase wide apart. There is no denying that. Some people say it was absolutely fantastic, other people say it is absolutely terrible. But what do I think? Firstly, this is the first Doctor Who episode by Neil Cross. He's been around as Neil Cross, but this is the first time he's written for Doctor Who. He's written for Luther, I think he's written for Spooks as well, and he's going to be writing another episode later on in the series called Hyde, which is a ghost story, which is right up his street. But The Rings of Akhaten, how does this hold up? Any problems here? I'm prepared to forgive him for that, because this is his first story. Although, having said that, it was actually Hyde which he wrote first, not Rings of Akhaten. So I think he was just asked out of the blue to write a second episode for the series. But anyway, let's see how it holds up. Now, for me, some of the best scenes occurred in the pre-title sequence, where Clara's parents meet and end up raising Clara. There were a few good scenes in there, like the Doctor watching all these events. The first one when he's reading a Beano magazine dated in 1981. There was also that scene where Clara kicks the Doctor in the head with the football, and he ends up doing a martial arts pose. I think that's meant to be a nice little reference to Jon Pertwee, and I think it would be good to see the Doctor do those Venusian martial arts again, because, let's face it, Jon Pertwee was something of an action hero, and every other Doctor after him, well, he hasn't been a match for any of the monsters, combat-wise. Now, it's pretty obvious that the Doctor is watching these events and watching Clara grow up, because he still doesn't have any idea who this girl is. And when the TARDIS confirms that all three versions of Clara are the same, or at least I think that's what they're confirming, that really thickens the plot. There were some dates mentioned, or some references to the classic series, if you will. March the 5th, 2005, the date that Clara's mum died. That's the same day Doctor Who was brought back by Russell T Davies. There were some moments in the pre-title sequence that didn't really work, like that speech Clara's dad gave about the leaf. That didn't sound realistic at all. And yeah, the car that nearly knocked him over at the beginning, I swear that was the same car from Father's Day that nearly killed Rose's dad. Right, as for what happens after the title sequences, the Doctor picks Clara up and takes her on her first adventure through time and space to Akhaten. Now, I'm not really sure if Akhaten is meant to be a planet or a sun, because one minute they're calling it a sun, the next they're calling it a planet. And I'll get on to that later. But the moment Clara steps out of the TARDIS, she is really thrown in at the deep end, because virtually none of the people around her even look human. The production team, they did a pretty good job on the aliens. Some of them anyway. Some of them look pretty good. Others look rather crap. But the fact that they've made this many aliens to put in just one area, it reminds me of the Cantina bar scene from Star Wars, and I think a few people will agree with me on that note. Just so many aliens around you, in what they consider to be everyday life. It's very easy to compare this episode to End of the World, Rose Tyler's first trip in the TARDIS, in the sense that she's taken into the far, far future and is immediately amongst all these alien faces. But unlike Rose, Clara does settle into the environment pretty well, because before you know it, she's eating alien fruits without the Doctor even telling her it's safe to eat, and she gets into communicating with some of these aliens in their weird and wonderful languages. This episode was directed by Farron Blackburn, who directed The Doctor, the Widow and the Wardrobe over a year ago. Now, as much as I don't like The Doctor, the Widow and the Wardrobe, I'll give credit to Farron Blackburn, because she was only given a small area of set to work with, but at the same time she was able to make it seem a bit more vast. And it's the same here with this alien market, because we run through it several times, and it's a very small set, but she's able to make it look surprisingly bigger. So well done to her. Anyway, on the subject of Clara, I think she does better in this episode. I think she's firmly rooted in as a companion, because in The Bells of St. John, she was kind of boring. Don't get me wrong, Jenna-Louise Coleman is a great actress and she does great in the role, but in The Bells of St. John, she didn't really appear to be companion material. In this story, however, she's gotten into the role quite comfortably. Another actor who is really good in this story, well, besides Matt Smith of course, is Amelia Jones as Mary Gallel, or the Queen of Years, as she's sometimes referred to in this story. Now, I think she's one of the best child actors I've ever seen in Doctor Who. She really gets into the role, and her character works beautifully. When we first see her, she's running through the market, and it isn't because someone's trying to kidnap her or kill her, it's just because she's scared out of her wits that she's going to mess up when she's singing to a god. And I think to myself, who can blame her? Singing to a god, that takes guts. And who can blame her for running away in fear? So, well done, Neil Cross. That's a very nice reason for her character to be afraid and run away. That scene when Clara and Mary are crouched behind the TARDIS, and Clara convinces Mary to be brave and just go back to the choristers to go and sing, I'm thinking, yeah, she's a really, really caring person. Although, having said that, I kind of expected, seeing as Clara has already been a nanny this series in 2 episodes. But the scenes between Mary and Clara, I think they're some of the best in the story. And the story, it's great. It's absolutely great, and right up until the bits where they mess up on the singing. Now, I don't mind the singing itself. I mean, this story is soaked in alien religion and all that. But here's the thing. The scene in which the first scene in which the aliens join in with Mary's singing the mummy to sleep, I'm thinking, that is a great picture right there. Neil Cross gets it. He gets Doctor Who, the concept of alien adventures anyway. It's about going to different alien worlds, seeing these different cultures, and stopping all these evil aliens if need be. And truth be told, I'd kind of be happy to see the story just carry on something like that. But where the story really starts to fall apart is where that chorister inside the pyramid messes up the song. And I know what you're going to say. The Doctor says Mary didn't mess up the song, although she thinks she did. The mummy is waking up because it's his time to wake up. I don't think so, because if you look back at that clip where the singing stops, you can tell from the pitch of the chorister's voice it was quite clearly him who messed up. So the whole thing about the mummy waking up because it's time to, that wasn't really necessary. Now, on the subject of the mummy, how good a villain is he? Well, it turns out he's just an alarm clock for that big jack-o'-lantern, sun, planet, whatever it is. And I think, what a wasted villain. Look at him, he's an alien mummy. I was half expecting, I don't know, the Osirans from Pyramids of Mars to make a surprise return. That would have been good, I'll admit. But the fact that you just create a monster who's locked inside a glass box the whole time, then shoots a laser at the sun, or planet, whatever it is, just to wake up the real God. I'm thinking, why can't you just have a machine or something do that? Another wasted aspect are the Vigil. You know, those monsters with the dark staring eyes and that open mouth. Those were creepy as hell, I have to admit. Very, very good monsters. But they didn't really do much. Except hiss a bit and belch this sort of psychic energy before they're whisked away because they're not needed anymore. Another thing I have to say about the Vigil is that they turn up earlier on in the episode inside the market, or this sort of scrapyard behind the market, searching for Mary to feed her to the mummy. And I'm thinking, well, if they can warp themselves inside this marketplace, why has it taken them so long to find Mary and bring her to the mummy? And why don't they just wake him up themselves? And in the end, the mummy wakes up this jack-o'-lantern something without even being fed. So what the hell was the point of feeding Mary to him anyway? Now I need to talk about when the Doctor and Clara hire this moped from this alien trader called Doreen. Now I like the fact that these aliens use objects of sentimental value as currency, and the Doctor doesn't have anything to give other than his sonic screwdriver, which he desperately needs. Clara has to give up her mum's wedding ring so that they can buy this moped. Now, understandably, she's upset. Yeah, that makes sense. But here's the thing. Why do they need to hire the moped in the first place? They have the TARDIS. They don't need to pay a goddamn thing. They can just use it to hop from the market to the temple, and they don't even have to keep a door open. And when Clara gets her ring back at the end of the story, the Doctor says they wanted you to have it back because you saved them, nobody else. Aren't you forgetting someone, Neil Cross? What about Mary? She kept on singing, trying to keep that sun god thing asleep, and the Doctor letting that sun god feast on his history and all that. I think there were at least 2 other people who did a lot more than Clara did. Let's just talk about how the villain got defeated. The Doctor lets the Sun God take his entire life story and absorb it, but apparently that's not enough. But one leaf, one stupid leaf that just has the history of one person that never got lived, is enough to cause this sun to blow up. Now I understand what they say, that there is an infinity of possibilities with an object detailing history that never got lived, but surely that's the same with virtually every object, so how the hell does this cause the villain to die? But anyway, my conclusion. First half of this story was pretty much spot on, but from the point where the guy messes up on the singing, that's where it all starts to fall apart. So I guess I'm going to have to give this episode a 5 out of 10. I'm sorry if you think differently. I mean, many people do think differently about this story, but I didn't really think it was that great. Next week, though, we're going to be having Cold War, which features the return of the Ice Warriors, something that Mark Gatiss has wanted to do for a long time. So tune in for my review of that, and I'll see you next time.